Okay, we talked about these ceiling tiles with these custom radius edges. Now we're going to have a quick workshop on how you could cut a radius edge when you have to trim along the edge of a ceiling. Now, when we bought these things, there were no instructions or no know-how, even from the supplier, on what you would do. Most professional installers would just cut the things, figuring that it's an edge up against the wall. No one would ever see the radius. Well, Moosecraft took exception to that, and James Moose came up with an idea using a router on how to combat the problem.
If the camera could pick this up, there's a small radius edge right here on the edge of the tile, and that's the detail that is normally seen on all four edges of the tile. Now this particular tile has been cut, and that would be what the edge would look like, and that's what the normal installer would
and that would be good enough.
Would leave it at.
Right.
And when I asked the supplier, what is normally done, the supplier told me absolutely nothing. He shook his head. Well, we decided to. I went out and I found a router bit, and I put it on my router table, and I created an edge which is very similar to the manufacturer's edge. And in fact, my edge is even a little bit bigger, giving me a little bit more room for making error, being that we were somewhat concerned about ruining these tiles.
Even if you're on a regular rocked wall, which they're hardly ever regular.
These tiles run probably about 4 times more than a conventional tile, so we wanted to make sure we didn't do anything to damage them. And it was really very satisfying the way they came out.
What about time consumption? Was it worth? Do you think it was worth the effort?
Oh, it was absolutely worth the effort. It took really not a whole lot more time to do it this way, and I wouldn't hesitate to do it this way again.
So this is probably kind of unique. I wouldn't think that anybody has gone to this extreme.
Absolutely. I definitely plan on sending in some suggestions into my local wood magazines, because I'm sure no one has thought of it, or if they have, they certainly haven't shared that experience yet.
Good enough.
We'll be sure to.
All right, now we're going to do a little Q&A with our master carpenter, James Moose. James, let's get into this trophy case.
Okay.
And why don't you give us a little explanation of how it was designed, how it accommodates the space and the customer's needs and whatever. All right, let's get into the space first, and then you can say how you constructed it.
Basically, as far as the space goes, we made use of every inch of space that was available. The way that this unit was constructed, it was basically built in 4 separate cubes. All right, each cube being an individual piece. And I can tell you that this largest cube was quite heavy. This material was at least 2 or 3 times as heavy as normal plywood. But basically it was built in 4 pieces, and then the 4 pieces were installed one at a time.
So this space is a little shallower than that one, right?
That's correct. We had mentioned that earlier. That this base is only about 12 inches deep, and the base over on this side is about 16 or 17 inches deep. Okay, we also installed backlighting, and the lighting was installed up over the top of this top rail in order to try to camouflage it as best as we could. And there's also lighting installed underneath this center rail.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now you have 4 separate pieces in effect, and you did most of the rough work at home, then you assembled here. Now, how did you get it all to tie in?
Okay, the face pieces are actually applied with a piece called a spline, which is a little wooden or a little plastic biscuit. It's shaped very similar to a biscuit. And those little splines are actually slots are bored on all of the mating pieces, and then the face pieces are actually just pressed into position. There's no way to nail this, although there's glue on here. You can put glue on, but you can't actually clamp the piece, because there's no way to get a clamp on the back of the unit because it's already been inserted in the wall. We decided to do it that way basically because we had little or no choice. On the smaller built-ins over on the other side of the room, we were able to actually build the entire assembly on the floor and then set it in position. But even at that, those units probably weighed well over 250 pounds. I'm sure this unit would have weighed well over 400 pounds had we tried to do it that way, and it might have broken up on us if we tried to lift it.
So it looks like you had a lot of experience in building these things before, right?
Absolutely none. The experience gained was gained on the small built-ins over on the other side of the room, and once I was able to master the craft over there, I decided to challenge this piece.
Well, how many times did you measure these glass doors then before you were confident enough to have them cut?
No less than 4 times, and I called the glass supplier no less than 3 times to change the measurements, because I was just a tad bit unsure of myself, having not done this before. The glass is the very high-strength tempered glass, which is extremely resistant to cracking. Although it's not shatter-proof, it's certainly what you'd call shatter-resistant.
So that's about all we need to know on this unit. Now
Basically.
we're going to stuff it up with trophies, or if the other homeowner has her way, it's going to be what, ceramics?
That's possible.
Yeah. Okay, let's fade out of this one.
Okay.
Good job. It's between these and the Formica type units in the other rooms.
Okay, well, basically, this unit was built out of birch plywood with poplar facings. The unit was built in 3 pieces, similar to the unit in the other room, and then once the 3 pieces were installed in the wall, the front facings were put on, and we were able to just put those on with nails, not needing to use the biscuits that I mentioned earlier. Then after they were nailed on, everything was puttied. All the shelves are adjustable. They're all removable and can be moved around. I put a variety of different holes over on the sides to accommodate the shelves, and the holes are all drilled with a custom jig that I've designed that I hope to maybe someday be able to patent. After the unit was all filled and sanded, we decided to bring in a compressor and actually spray the unit with an oil-based white lacquer, which really gave it a real nice, durable finish. It'll probably not have to be refinished for a long, long time, and that was the basic intent here. We wanted to make a softer type of look in here with rounded edges as opposed to that very modern squared edge look that we had in the other room, but at the same time make it out of something that was durable and long-lasting, and I think we've basically accomplished that with this unit.
That's about it, huh?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Once again, good job.